Hello and welcome to another edition of Convict Inc. I'm your host, Robert Rosso. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so. If you have not joined our membership, please do so. If you like this video, please push like and share with your family, friends, enemies, neighbors, etc. Yes, enemies. Earlier today, I did a series of phone interviews with the New York State prisoner by the name of Geritano. Hopefully that video is being uploaded on YouTube now. It will then be sent to an attorney and hopefully we can get it up tonight. In the meantime, I'm going to do this, which is another story about a member of the California Aryan Brotherhood that was sent into the federal prison system by the name of Bobby Ray Shields. As many of you may know who have watched anything to do with my Aryan Brotherhood videos, there's been like 2 or 3. I've mentioned Bobby Ray several times. In the last video, I mentioned that he got punked out by a sex offender named Marcus Hahn. Marcus Hahn had a marijuana case. He was also drugging and having sex with underage minors, teenage boys, 16, 17, whatever. I believe that's what it was. And when Bobby Ray found out about it at USP Victorville, he had 3 or 4 members of the Nazi lowriders attack Marcus Hahn, in which Marcus Hahn fought back and held his own. Sometime later, about a year later, Marcus Hahn ends up at Lewisburg, where Bobby Ray was, and the first order of business for Marcus Hahn was to go confront Bobby Ray directly and say, if you got a problem, let's deal with it. Bobby Ray chose not to deal with it. People have asked me why, dirty white boys, I was the leader, why we didn't do anything to Marcus Hahn at the time, and it was because we didn't know the case or the history surrounding Marcus Hahn. Nobody knew. He was below the radar. He was below the radar because Bobby Ray chose to keep the whole thing below the radar at that time. But moving on, this is another story about Bobby Ray, and in full disclosure, me and Bobby Ray didn't get along, and this story is one in which I think will help break more of that myth about the Aryan Brotherhood. What I mean is, there's this myth that the Aryan Brotherhood often, one of them, a lone AB, will show up at a prison and take control of the compound or take control of the yard. While this has been true in some cases, and I think that happened at Big Sandy once, I believe. I know that happened at Victorville. I know that happened at Lompoc. I know that happened at Leavenworth back in the day. While this is true, it is not always true, and it is less true today. There are stronger prison gangs that will not bow to the ABs, like in days gone by, which the ABs had a greater influence. Not to say they still don't have a very big influence. And I'm talking about the California ABs and the feds, or the federal ABs specifically. Bobby Ray Shields originally was sent to D Block. D Block was on the other end of the hall from which I was housed. I was in F Block, Bobby was down in D, and he was housed with one of my bros, Wilbur. I think Billy was down there at the time. Anyway, he was in D Block. B Block was being used at that time for the special housing unit. They were remodeling the original special housing unit at Lewisburg. It's a big spot, 4 floors, and they were using D Block, which was a regular housing unit, but they were substituting and using it as a SHU. When they opened the new SHU and they moved a bunch of people down to B Block, it was all volunteers in the beginning. As a matter of fact, Hell's Angel by the name of Danny Byfield, shout out to Danny, I like him a lot, was pretty much the guy in control of moving everybody down there. He had a unit manager he was close with. Danny had a big pull in the prison, but he did stay out of politics. So the story, what I'm about to share, should not reflect on Danny Byfield whatsoever. Bobby Ray Shields moved into B Block and he became like boss hog of that block, so he thought. No, he did, for sure. For sure, that was Bobby Ray's stronghold, and he had a lot of white guys that looked up to him move down in that block. F Block was my block, or the block I was in for a long time, and then I went to the hole. I went back to F Block, then I went to the hole again. They put me in D Block. I went to the hole again, and then they put for being drunk, and then I was put into B Block. In B Block was also an Italian guy by the name of Tony Aiello. Tony Aiello, I'll be doing a Mob Monday about shortly. But Tony Aiello was in the block. I'm not sure Corky, there was an Italian guy named Corky out of New York. although he was maybe loosely associated with the mob, he was another one that was a junkie. So, and I don't say that like disparagingly or discredit, he was a junkie. So a lot of the mafia guys didn't like him. But so it was Corky, Tony Aiello, what was Johnny's name? Anyway, there was another one. Tony Aiello lived by himself for a second, or Corky lived with him at this time. And one day, a black guy who was a blood from the Midwest walked up in Tony Aiello's cell and robbed him. Just took all his shit. And he had a pair of glasses that were expensive. Tony Aiello in his 70s, part of the Pizza Connection, the second one, he did nothing. Now, Bobby Ray, that was his block, okay? Straight up. It came to Bobby Ray's attention that the old man got robbed. Bobby Ray inquired about it, knew who did it, and did nothing. Let me repeat. The shot caller for the Aryan Brotherhood, the only AB, but he had two prospects under him at the time, which were Grumpy and Boulderhead, who were the NLRs, who then became ABs. They weren't ABs yet, but they were under him. They were prospecting. They were down there. Boulderhead wasn't at that time. Grumpy was, just got moved down there. But there were a lot of white guys and a lot of white guys that looked up to Bobby Ray. Because Tony Aiello, even though he's Italian, he's an old man and his skin color is white. So that would fall under Bobby Ray's reign, if you will, or leadership, no matter if he's Italian or not. That's how it's supposed to be anyway for the ABs. So Bobby Ray did nothing. Some people then went to the Italians. Danny Pharma, I guess it would be safe to say, would be one of the people that was politicking on the yard. To say leader, I'm not going to say that because there was people with higher rank than him. But Danny was basically the spokesman. He liked to do the politicking. Good politician, Danny Pharma. I like Danny Pharma. The Italians did nothing when they found out that Tony Aiello got robbed. Benny Geritano was in the hole for an incident that happened with Jimmy Ida, who was a Genovese, or Lucchese, I'm sorry, what was he? Jesus, Lucchese. And Benny and Jimmy Ida got into a fight. Benny will explain that in his interview. They were in the hole for a minute. Benny was in F block. He got put down in B block where I was. And we got out like a day out of the hole, maybe the same day or day apart. As a matter of fact, I was out a day or so before. When Benny got there is when I found out that Tony Aiello had been robbed. I want to say that I brought it to Benny's attention, but that might not be accurate, okay? So I don't want to say that exactly. And I only remembered the story today when Benny was talking about it. And after we hung up, I started like going back and I'm like, oh yeah, and I remembered the players and who was down there and everything that happened. Benny Geritano, for those of you who don't know, has been described, and you can Google search him, as like a one-man mafia. A Gambino associate. He's disrespected many wise guys and continues to this day. And they've had sit-downs over him. Benny takes no shit, doesn't care about titles, rank, organized crime. He was a street guy, tough street guy from New York, who father was a Gambino who hung out with John Gotti. It was in John Gotti's inner circle, from what I understand. Uncle was a Genovese associate. I mean, just he's from that life. But he was never made, and he often disrespected guys who were actually wise guys, made guys, buttoned up, whatever. When Benny found out that Tony Aiello got robbed, and then found out that they knew who it was, Tony went right to the shot caller of the Bloods, pulled him up. The guy said, hey, look, Benny, we'll take care of it. We don't want no problem. And mind you, Bobby Ray Shields had already been to this guy and talked to him. Did not get the same kind of respect. One person, one man, Benny Geritano, went and then wanted to fight the guy who stole it And the blood said no. The moral of the story is not about Benny Geritano. Well, you'll be hearing a lot out of Benny Geritano, or from Benny Geritano, out of his own words, through recordings. The moral of the story is this is about dispelling some myths about members of the Aryan Brotherhood. That is not to say that the Aryan Brotherhood is not a powerful force in some states or in some prison systems, or cannot be a powerful force like they were. Again, no, that's not true. They will never be what they were back in the 60s and 70s. But it doesn't mean they don't have strength on the street. It doesn't mean that they're not people to fear in the wrong situation. But it is to tell you, I am here to show you that they're not all they're cracked up to be in every single case. Bobby Ray Shields killed 2 people in state prison. Bobby Ray Shields didn't kill nothing in the feds. Bobby Ray Shields was not in anything in the feds other than a symbol, a powerful symbol when he was on the West Coast prisons for a moment. But when he went to Lewisburg and found himself in the company of a gang like the Dirty White Boys, who had a lot of numbers, he didn't do shit. And I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm saying that Bobby Ray came onto the compound trying to say that he was going to go home, didn't want any problems. But the truth was he just didn't have the numbers at the time, and he didn't want to step up and say, hey, I'm taking over, like some ABs do and have done so successfully. He had 5 years. He came in and right off the rip got punked by a sex offender. And then in this case, he let an old man get robbed, knew who robbed him. A black guy robbed him, but chose to do nothing. Yet, in another situation, when I was watching battery's going bad. When I was watching VH1 and CMT with Grumpy, actually with CMT, and a Faith Hill video came on, and there was a black guy spinning. He wanted to throw a fit and tell us to change the TV, in which I did not. But so he wanted to put a little pressure on some white guys, but he didn't want it. When the push came to shove, he didn't want nothing. He didn't want no problem. And again, yeah, I had issues with Bobby, not quite to the level of what Joey Testa, but in my experience and that was the only AB I was around at Lewisburg at the time. I was not at Leavenworth when the ABs had the yard. I was in Leavenworth when the ABs were in the shoe. I was in the shoe with Barry Mills and T.D. Bingham when they came back for Big Mac's trial. We talked to them. I did a video about that. Very respectful guys, actually. But in the case of Bobby Ray Shields, he was not. The myth of Bobby Ray Shields, he killed people back in the day. One of them, I believe he was a sacromaniac, and he killed when he was looking the other way, and he came in his cell and killed him backwards. I'm not sure of the other one. He was tough, don't get me wrong. Bobby Ray was a killer, don't get me wrong, once upon a time. But let us not believe that he went to Lewisburg and ran anything, and that's the truth. That's the truth. So there's your AB story for today. I'm going to do the background again. It'll be this week. I got 3 days left. Take care.